Hello and welcome everyone to our latest journal review on high flow oxygen and risk of mortality in patients with suspected acute coronary syndrome, a pragmatic cluster randomized crossover trial from BMJ. Oxygen has been given to patients of acute myocardial infarction for more than 50 years now. This is done despite limited evidence that it actually improves the outcome. The IOTA meta-analysis looked at the morbidity and mortality in acutely ill individuals differentiated based on liberal versus conservative oxygen therapy. In this, they had various groups like neurological patients, stroke, sepsis, emergency surgery, critical care, mixed ICU, and cardiac, including the myocardial infarction and cardiac arrest. And all of these studies usually favored less use of oxygen. So there was a better outcome if less oxygen was used. The largest trial in the cardiac, that is in myocardial infarction with 6,000 patients, is Hoffman trial in 2017, that is the DETOX trial. Now, this is the DETOX trial which was published in 2017, and in this they found almost similar mortality difference between the two groups, either getting high oxygen or low oxygen. So since we have meta-analysis and data showing that giving oxygen is not improving outcome, why still this trial was done? It was done because there were certain limitations in the current evidence that we have as of now, especially in ACS. In randomized trials, lower risk and patients have been included more, which might not be representative of all the patients who usually receive the care. Now, all previous trials, including the DETOX, had insufficient power to identify a small but clinically relevant 1 to 2% absolute difference in mortality. Since the overall mortality in DETOX trial was only 3%, the study was definitely too underpowered to detect a 1% difference in mortality. Now, most patients included in the previous trials had a normal oxygen saturation to begin with itself. So giving them oxygen may not be too beneficial. Now, is it possible that the effects of oxygen depend on the diagnosis? For example, if the patient has an acute STEMI and has prolonged and severe myocardial ischemia, they might show a better response to oxygen than other people who are a lot more stable with less risk. Now let's see how the study was done, the methods. The study population included all patients with a suspected ACS in 2 national registries in New Zealand during the study period of 2 years. The first registry was the All New Zealand Acute Coronary Syndrome Quality Improvement Registry, which included 98% of the patients admitted to the hospitals in New Zealand with ACS who undergo coronary angiography with or without a revascularization. And the ambulance ACS pathway, that is all patients with suspected ACS who are managed by St. John Ambulance Service, which covers 90% of the New Zealand's population. Now let's see how this oxygen protocol was implemented in the two groups. What was the protocol of giving oxygen? So coming first to the high oxygen protocol, in patients with probable or confirmed ACS, oxygen for ischemic chest pain, ischemic ECG changes and dyspnea relative to myocardial infarction should be given irrespective of the level of oxygen saturation. So patient is to be given oxygen irrespective of what is the SpO2. If the patient has any of these symptoms, they should be given oxygen. Oxygen is to be administered by a face mask at 8 liters per minute, or if the face mask is not tolerated, through nasal prongs 4 liters per minute. The oxygen flow is to be increased to get a saturation above 95. Oxygen is to be continued until the patient is admitted to the hospital or transferred to cardiology, or when the doctor finally decides it's no longer required. Caution or avoid high flow oxygen in patients with risk of hypercapnia, including those with possible obesity hypoventilation syndrome or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now the low protocol. In this, patients with suspected coronary syndrome were not to be given oxygen even if they had ischemic chest pain, ischemic ECG changes, or dyspnea if the saturation was more than 90. Oxygen was to be given only if the saturation was less than 90%. The oxygen saturation cannot be measured, then oxygen was to be administered if the hypoxia was considered to be significant. Now, this was entirely the subjective decision of the treating physician or the technician who was in the ambulance. If oxygen was administered via face mask or nasal prong, the flow rate was to be given to achieve a saturation of around 90 to 94%. Discontinue oxygen when no longer required if the saturation is more than 90%. And again, high flow oxygen is to be avoided in patients with hyperventilation or COPD. Finally, oxygen can be administered to people who were on ventilators or requiring CPAP. Now, this is the map of New Zealand. The New Zealand was divided into 4 zones: the northern, southern, central, and midland. So northern and southern were grouped into one group, and midland and central were grouped into another group. And there was a crossover of these two protocols over the 2-year period of time. Now, these circles indicate the places where PCI facility was available, and these triangles indicate those places where it is not available. Now, the study endpoints. The primary outcome was all-cause mortality 30 days after first presentation with suspected ACS, and there was subgroup analysis to be done in pre-specified groups on the basis of STEMI or non-STEMI. And finally, secondary analysis was to be done of mortality, the length of stay, and patients who are discharged alive at index admission. Now, audit of this protocol adherence. A research nurse completed the audit form of 779 of the 870 forms, that is 89.5% of the patients with ACS admitted in 28 randomly allocated days throughout the study, 1 day each per month. So the sample size calculation was based on the fact that the study was to be done over 2 years for pragmatic reasons. Based on the historical data, they expected at least 30,000 sample size to get an 80% power with 5% level of significance to detect a 20% relative or a 0.6% absolute difference in the mortality at day 30. Now, assuming a 30-day mortality of 3% based on the detox trial in suspected ACS. Now, coming to the results. So totally, this is how the protocol was implemented. Across the 4 geographic regions, they were randomly used to high or low oxygen protocol. And this is how the recruitment was done. And finally, 20,000 patients were recruited into the high oxygen group and 20,000 into the low oxygen group. Now, this is the baseline difference between the two groups, which was essentially similar in terms of age, men, ethnicity, previous myocardial infarction, previous heart failure, comorbidity, smoking, diabetes, KLEEP scoring, and final diagnosis. But the important thing that need to be noted is 47.7% of the patients who were admitted did not have ACS. So only 10% had STEMI, 25% had non-STEMI, and unstable angina was only 8%. Nearly 56% did not have any kind of coronary event. Now, if we look in terms of mortality, then the mortality was around 3% in day 30, but it was not statistically different between the two groups. But if we look into the STEMI group, then in STEMI group, the mortality was 8.8% in the high oxygen and 10.6% in low oxygen. That means it was lesser in people who received the high oxygen protocol, and it was statistically significant. The Kaplan-Meier curve again shows there is no major difference between the two groups. There is almost similar outcomes. Now, the adherence to the protocol, as we already have seen, almost 800 samples were audited. But the important thing to be noted is around 15% of the patients in the audited sample were receiving oxygen in the low oxygen group, even though they had a saturation of more than 90%, which is clear violation of the protocol. Now, the author's conclusion is that the study found no benefit from high flow oxygen in most patients presenting with suspected ACS. The results support current clinical practice guidelines, which recommend that oxygen is not to be given to patients of suspected ACS who have a normal saturation. However, the study neither confirmed nor excluded the possibility of a small benefit from supplementary oxygen in patients who present with STEMI. So let's see what are the limitations of this trial. It was a registry-based trial which included all the patients, but only few had actually STEMI. So any patient who had any suspicion of ACS were included. So as we ultimately found out, 56% of these patients were actually not even having any kind of coronary features. So even though the size looks very large, 56% is of absolutely no importance to us. Information on oxygen use and protocol adherence is extremely limited. Data is available. Out of the samples audited, 10% of the audit is missing without any explanation being given. So we don't actually know if these protocols were actually given to real patients in the ground. So all that we have is data which we have got from the registry, not necessarily what was actually being done with individual patients. The duration is again unspecified. The protocol does not tell how long this oxygen is to be given, and this is entirely based on the discretion of the treating physician, which can be subjective and vary from ICU to ICU, place to place. So the take-home message is, as the study had highlighted these 4 limitations of the current evidence, it doesn't actually add to anything. It doesn't really prove us that it has taken high-risk patients. It actually has not. 56% of the patients were absolutely not having any kind of a coronary event. If you look at the power of the study, even the detox trial had 6,000 patients. In this trial, they have only 4,000 patients in the STEMI group, which is again definitely not a very good sample size to tell us that the absolute difference in mortality will be statistically significant. Now, most patients included in the previous trial had normal oxygen, which is almost same in this also. Very few patients had actually hypoxia in this case. And as we have already seen, the people who had STEMI was already less. So we cannot really say that this is a beneficial effect on people who are taking STEMI. So we need more trials. We need more RCTs focusing only on STEMI patients who are having hypoxia. So it actually doesn't address the shortcomings of the previous trial, and it actually doesn't add in any way to the previous understanding. The only thing that we can think that this study has added is that it has shown a possibility of benefit of giving oxygen to patients who have STEMI. So maybe in future we should do more RCTs, not so pragmatic, more scientific RCTs, focusing on patients who have STEMI and who are hypoxic. So as of now, our practice remains the same. We will not be changing our practice of giving oxygen to patients of acute coronary syndrome when they are hypoxic. Thank you for your patience, and check our website for further information.